everyone, it's Alice and welcome to another reading vlog where I will attempt to read some romance, which might be surprising to some of you and is also kind of surprising to me. Some of you, and some of you may not, know that I don't really read a lot of romance. There have been a couple the past couple of years that I've absolutely loved, and I've read them not because they are romance books, but because I've heard a lot of great things about the writing. And those two books are The Song of Achilles and Call Me By Your Name. And I feel like those are very particular types of romance books where it's super intense. I feel like it leans towards the heavy, darker part of it, and there's a lot of other stuff going on in those books as well, but they are love stories, but they're heavy in a way. And I am generally drawn towards quite heavy books, but then I'm also not, because I read a lot of cozy books and I read a lot of lighter books, and I keep saying that I don't like romance, but I don't know if it's actually true because I haven't really tried a lot of them. I kind of feel like I've written off an entire genre of books and a certain type of books, and I don't really have a great reason for it. And I was thinking about it the other day. I feel like romance books are kind of on the rise, at least in my sphere and what I'm seeing. I'm seeing a lot of romance books, and I think they're popular all the time. But right now I'm seeing a lot of them, and I had a thought the other day. I was like, but maybe I'll like them, because how would I know when I haven't tried them? I guess technically I have tried some, but it was probably in my late teens and early 20s, and I really didn't get on with it. But I think that, maybe it's something about finding the right author, maybe the genre has evolved a little bit, maybe I just couldn't find the right ones, or maybe my tastes have just changed. I think I would kind of I want to like the sort of lighter, fluffier romance books that can be sort of palate cleansers between all of the dark and heavy stuff that I read sometimes. My hope is that I'm gonna really like this genre. I am a little bit skeptical, and I'll tell you why in a bit, but my hope is that I'm really gonna get on with it, and that I can read these types of books where I want something lighter and just something fun and enjoyable, because I do need those books quite often, and I read a lot of cozy mysteries, and not all of those are super deep or whatever, and it's fine. The thing though that I worry about is the cringe. I feel like I have quite a low tolerance for cringe, and it's one of the reasons that I don't watch certain types of movies, because there is a lot of cringe in some of those movies, and I don't usually watch rom-coms or anything. There are a couple that are really good, but it's very rare that I watch one just from my own initiative. And I've never really felt like those are the stories for me. But movies and books are not always the same, and I think I would maybe like it better in book form. I'm probably overthinking this, to be honest, but I just feel like I've said I don't like romance books and I don't read romance books for such a long time, and I'm questioning myself and having a completely unnecessary crisis, but a crisis nonetheless. This is basically just a very long-winded way of saying I'm gonna try some romance books and see if I like them. The thing is though, because I've read so little of it, I don't really know what to look for and what to avoid. So I think this is gonna take a little bit of exploration. But I think if I just find the right ones, because the thing is, like I mentioned, I have those two favorite romance books, but that's not what I'm really wanting to explore. I want to explore the lighter stuff and the more just regular contemporary fiction stuff, maybe some historical fiction, but not the super heavy, intense thing that is in those other books that I love, which I love those, but sometimes that's not what you want. It is a little bit hard to explain though what makes me cringe about these types of stories sometimes. I think part of it is that sometimes there is something cringy in watching or like seeing or knowing about something that is supposed to be very private or that feels very private. But then if it's done well, it's amazing. Like, that can be said for a lot of things in books and stuff, and it works really well. And it needs like the right level of seriousness, I guess. And then also, this is one of those times where I have the perfect word for it in Norwegian, and I don't know what it is in English. Google Translate is no help because it translates this word into heartfelt, and it's not really what I'm like. It doesn't have quite the same meaning. If there are any Norwegians watching, the word I'm thinking of is inderlig. I don't like it when things are too, I don't know how to explain this, but I guess in a way it feels like it's just too much. It's so hard to explain. Maybe I'll find a way to explain this while reading these books. I don't really know. I think the way to explain it is that sometimes, maybe it's that things feel so over the top that they feel fake. And it needs to be real or feel real, but it can't be too intense. Which is a funny thing to say because those romance books that I have liked are really intense, but they're in a very particular setting and they're followed by a very particular writing style. And I think maybe the thing I struggle with sometimes is that when you're in like a lighter, fun settings and suddenly things are like super intense and it's like soulmate kind of stuff, it doesn't feel real because it's so out of place. I don't know if I'm explaining this very well, but that's the best I can do for now. This is like the longest intro ever though, so I'm gonna stop talking. I will tell you about the first book that I have chosen. I haven't chosen all of the books for this yet because I want to read this first one and see if maybe it can help me pick my next reads and if it'll help me to like find what I'm looking for and maybe what I don't like. But I picked up Beach Read by Emily Henry because I've heard so many things about this book and this author. I picked this one sort of based on the fact that it's summer and I'm gonna read it now while it's summer. And yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about Emily Henry, but I just don't know if these kinds of books are for me. This is also like one of those things that throws me off where it says 2 writers, 1 holiday, a rom-com waiting to happen. That does nothing for me. It kind of makes me not want to read the book, which maybe it's just how these books are marketed that like throws me off, and that's what I don't like because it reminds me of movie rom-coms, which I'm not into. But yeah, maybe I'll just have to like get over it. I do like the colors of the cover and the rest of it, just not this like sales pitch. Now I have actually sneakily started this already. I started it last night. I read like 30 pages and I'm gonna tell you what it's about, but I do want to do some more reading today, and I think I'm just gonna go read a little bit now and then I'll come back and I will tell you what I've read and what I'm thinking so far, and I hope it's gonna go well. Wait, so I actually kind of like this. Who am I? So I'm probably like a third of the way through, I guess, and I have a lot of thoughts, but let me tell you what the book is about first. It's about, like, we see the perspective from this writer who writes romance books, and we meet her when she has just had like this huge thing happen in her life. Her father, this happens like in the first bit, so this isn't really spoilers, but her father dies, and our main character obviously is dealing with that, but she's also dealing with something that comes out about him after he has died, and she is struggling with that a lot. and it's affecting her writing. And she's always believed in like happy endings, and she believes in love, and this thing that has happened has shaken her faith in that. She goes to this, I guess it's kind of like a lake house somewhere, and she goes there because she has had writer's block for a while, and she needs to write her next book by the end of summer. So it's like the beginning of summer where we're at now, and she goes there to write, but also to deal with this house that is like a thing that I don't want to spoil. And her neighbor turns out to be someone that she went to school with, who is also a writer. I guess they went to some sort of writing school together. And it's kind of like the person she always competed with in school. And he writes like serious literary fiction. They have kind of this like, we don't really get to see his perspective, but from her perspective, she kind of like hates this guy, but also finds him kind of attractive. And they had a little like thing on a dance floor when they were in school, and she seems to think he's really hot, but she also doesn't like him. And he is very grumpy, and she is also kind of grumpy, but she has more potential to be like happier. And they like come into contact with each other, and they sort of discuss love quite a lot, and they end up deciding that they're gonna write each other's genres because they both have like writer's block, and that's where we're at now. So our main character is gonna write a book that is like serious literary fiction, and this guy is gonna write what is basically a rom-com. There is a little bit of discussion with the fact that this guy is like super successful, and they talk a little bit about how his genre is like this elite genre, and her genre, which is classified as women's fiction, is looked down upon a little bit. I hope there's gonna be more of that, but I sense maybe not. But there was a little bit of a discussion on that, which I liked. I am surprisingly invested in the characters. I like that our main character is having like a full-on crisis, and it's very clear in the way that she acts that she is like having a really hard time. And I kind of like that she's a little chaotic and messy and all over the place, but she's like, she allows herself to be that because that's just what she needs, and she's going through a lot. And yeah, I kind of like her. I also do, just thinking about it, I do generally quite like a grumpy character, so I guess I kind of like the guy as well. But right now they're sort of working together in a way, and they're going on excursions and stuff, and I can sense, I mean, I feel like it's pretty obvious what's gonna happen. They're probably gonna get together, but I wonder if this is gonna follow the same, like, the same storyline that a lot of these stories follow, which is like, these people, they flirt, they sort of come together, they think they're in love with each other, something horrible happens, and they fall apart, but then they get back together in the end. I wonder if it's gonna follow that, because I don't know if I really, like, it's fine if that happens, but I hope it brings something more to it. The thing that surprises me though is that I'm like, my enjoyment level of this is pretty high, like so much so that I'm really looking forward to like going back and reading this in like 2 seconds. I'm really enjoying it the way that I sometimes enjoy cozy mysteries and like cozier and lighter books. And I thought that I wouldn't like lighter romances, but I think maybe I was wrong. That being said, we have not had that much cringe yet. And I will say, I really like the fact that they're like bantering with each other, but they're not being like outright mean, I guess. And I like their sort of interactions. I think sometimes, I think the banter is like really good, but it's almost like too good, and they can keep it going for a really long time. And I don't really think a lot of people could do that. Like, sometimes I wonder why they're not tripping up more, but maybe that's just me, who would probably trip up in that kind of situation. The book is about 360 pages though, so I have about 200 pages left. And I hope it's not gonna be so cringy that it's gonna lose me. I really hope that I can enjoy it as much as I'm enjoying it now. I will say it doesn't feel like a new favorite book, but it's surprisingly right now is at like a 4-star level, which I cannot believe that I didn't know myself enough to know that I would enjoy this. I don't know why. Yeah, who knew? You know what? I am gonna stick by my 4-star rating of this, which I'm surprised by. I really thought that in the last part it would like slip into a 3, but I really like this. I really am very surprised, but I flew through this. And I think part of my 4-star rating comes from my enjoyment level of this. It is a very easy read and it's like easy to get into. But I also think that I like the writing quite a lot and I really like the characters. So there's more than just enjoyment going on for me. Like there is a little bit of... there's more to the story than I thought there would be. It's also pretty rare for me to read a book this fast. There is something compulsive to the way that it's written and the way that the story is structured, and it's fast-paced without being too fast-paced. And for me, I feel like there wasn't really any part of this where I felt like things were going too slowly. I think it was pretty well paced. I will say there were like 2 pretty distinct moments of cringe in this for me that happened towards the end. I don't want to spoil the end, but there are a couple of things where I was just like, that's a little much. But I also kind of didn't mind it. Like I understood why it was there. And I think it was just like me who... I think I just have a very low tolerance for certain kinds of things. But I feel like it did fit the story. And I get why it was there. I also, surprisingly, I don't know if this is a spoiler really, but there is a little bit of steam in here, which usually I don't like those kinds of things in books, or I've read very few books where that really works for me, but in this, I actually quite enjoyed it. I liked the buildup of tension, and yeah, I liked it. It also wasn't too graphic, which I appreciate. Now, although I'm surprised that I really like this, it has come to my attention that Emily Henry is one of those romance authors that a lot of people who don't like romance like. So I'm wondering if this is just a fluke for me and it's just Emily Henry that's gonna work for me. And I kind of hope not, because I really enjoyed this. And I would like to read more of these kinds of books. I do wonder though if a lot of romance books follow the same, like it always ends the same, because I get the feeling that usually people just end up together, and that because you sort of know that, you lose some of that tension in, you kind of always know where the story's going if you pick up one of these books. And I hope that's not the case, but I kind of feel like it is. But like in this case, I was really rooting for them. So I guess if it's written well, it's fine that it has like an ending where people get together. I do think though that it would take a lot for me to read one of these books and give it 5 stars, because I have a feeling, and maybe I'm judging like an entire genre of books too quickly, but I have the assumption that a lot of these books follow the same, like it all ends the same and there isn't that many surprises to them. And I wonder if I'll ever find one of these books where I can give it 5 stars without it being like the kinds of books like The Song of Achilles and Call Me By Your Name, which are a totally different kind of romance books. But if I could find one of these that I would give 5 stars, I think that would be amazing. I'm gonna give this book 4 stars though, which is, like, I already feel like this vlog has been a success because I found a 4-star read. I really thought that at best I would give these books like 3 stars, but at least now we have one 4-star book, which is very exciting. This has also made me want to read the rest of Emily Henry's books, so I'm definitely going to try to read some more over the summer. I feel like there are some split opinions about which are her best books, so I kind of just feel like I have to read all of them. And I think there's a newly released one out as well. And I'm glad that I've found this author, because I think I really want to read everything she comes out with, because it's super enjoyable. Now, I do want to try some different things, but very happy that this was a success. And my next read is going to be something a little bit different, and I have already picked the book and I have started it, so let's talk about it. I decided to pick up a book that I already had, but that is in kind of like a different genre, I think. It's the Wisteria Society of Lady Scoundrels, which is historical fiction, and also kind of like, I didn't know what this book was before going into it. I don't know what I expected, but there's like fantasy elements to it as well, and it is like the setting of this is just completely different, and the tone is very, very different. This is kind of difficult to summarize quickly, but it's set in Victorian England, and we follow this woman who is like kind of like a trainee for this society that her aunt is in, and she lives with her aunt because her mother has passed away and her father is alive, I think, but we don't really know who he is. And they live in houses that can fly around. Like, you can fly your house with magic. And so they kind of fly their houses the way pirates would like have their boats, because they are a society of pirates, but they're lady and gentleman pirates, which is different from regular pirates because they still follow all of these like codes. I really did not know what to expect with this, but it was different than what I thought it was going to be, and for me it was like, it's already so good. The writing in this is very interesting because I think the writing is quite good and it's quite descriptive, but it's very humorous. Like, there's a lot of humor to it, and I like the absurdity of it because these people, they have magic, they're pirates and all of these things, but they still follow like in Victorian society there were a lot of particular ways of doing things, and it's the same with this. Like, it's totally fine to go steal something, but if someone touches someone else without gloves, it's like scandalous. It's really funny, but I think if you don't like the first like 30 pages of this, you're not gonna get on with it at all. But this is the kind of book to me that's like ridiculous, but it's done really well, so it's just fun and funny and super, super enjoyable. I cannot tell you how surprised I was when these houses started flying around. I was like, what is going on? Maybe though, this is a little bit of a weird choice for a romance reading vlog because I think that there's a lot of other stuff going on in this, which I enjoy, but I like picked this because on Goodreads it says like the first genre it says is romance, but there is a lot more stuff going on in here, and we haven't really gotten to the romance yet, even though I'm like 100 pages in. Although I can see which direction it's sort of heading in. I think I can see where the romance is going to be, but it's not the biggest part of the story the way that it is in this. The thing that I wonder about this though is that I wonder if I'm gonna end up enjoying this because of all the other stuff and not because of the romance. And I wonder if it's gonna be one of those reads where the romance is just there and I'm not like super invested in it. And I think I'm more likely to enjoy the other stuff, and I wonder how the romance is gonna be handled in here. Because this book has this funny and humorous and light tone, I think it's gonna make me cringe if all of a sudden someone gets together and it's like super heartfelt and it's super like intense, because I think I mentioned this in the beginning, that just feels really strange to me, and it feels out of place in a way. And I wonder if the romance is going to be written in the same sort of tone and the same, it has like the same vibe to it, which I think I would enjoy more. I think it's a little, I think it would be weird to me if these people got together and it was like the romance in the Song of Achilles, if you know what I mean. Like, it would just be completely out of place for me. It's a really fun story though, and super enjoyable, and it has like adventure vibes, which you know I love. And I really like the way that the characters are written, and I like that there are so many women in here, and so many of them are so funny. And this society is just hilarious to me. And I really like the main character. She has, at this point, there's like an assassin sent after her, and there's like a bigger plot going on that I think we're gonna get into now. And it's interesting. I like that this main character is quite innocent in a way, but she also takes things into her own hands, and it's like a funny, it's set in Victorian times, but it also feels slightly modern in the way that these women are just like fully in charge. And they also kind of I like how men are sort of useless in this story in a lot of ways, and it's just the women that are running and ruling everything. Anyways, I'm getting on with this very well, not surprisingly, because we haven't really gotten into the romance yet. But I'm gonna keep reading this, and I will check back in when I have finished it. I wonder if there's gonna be some steamy scenes in this one as well. I think that could be interesting. It could go both ways. It's either gonna be horrible or fine. So I really, really liked this one as well. I don't know what's going on, but I am having a great time with these books. I think my enjoyment of this, like the reasoning for it, is a little bit different than why I liked Beach Read. I think Beach Read was probably more the kind of romance books that I wanted to explore in this vlog, but I also wanted to give this a go because it's a different kind of romance. It's like historical fiction romance. But the tone is so different, and there is so much other stuff going on in here that made me enjoy it. And I think it's kind of hard to explain because I really liked the romance in this, actually, but it was just like a side plot in a way. It doesn't feel like the main part of the story, and I think if it was the main part of the story, I wouldn't enjoy this as much. I think I enjoyed it in the setting of all of this other stuff as well. With this one, I think it was the overall package that did it. I love this world that is created in here. I love the way Victorian society like fits into this different kind of world, and there are all of these social rules, and some stuff is fine to do even though it's illegal, and there are like ways of going about robbing someone, like you have to do it in the proper way, which to me is just super funny. And I like it being set in this super like in Victorian times where there were so many social norms that you had to follow, and it's sort of built into this world, and I just think it's really cool. And I liked watching the romance play out within that. I think that was very interesting. Also, again, I just really like the tone of it and the humor. I think this is one of the better written kind of ridiculous novels that I've read. And I use the word ridiculous in the way that, like, there are so many ridiculous things in it, just like Victorian society was ridiculous, and it makes fun of a lot of these things, but it's done in a really good way. And there were several sentences in here where I was like, that was very eloquent for this kind of book. So I actually feel like this is surprisingly well written, but it's well written in like a humorous way. I also really liked the characters in here. I loved our main character, and I especially love her aunt. I think she's really funny, and all of the society ladies. And I think the setting is amazing. I love these flying houses. I would love to see this as a movie. I think that could be so much fun. It could either be terrible or amazing, but if you made like an amazing adaptation of this, it would be the best time to watch, just like this was the best time to read. There is, again, kind of like soft spoilers, but like these are romance books. There is a little bit of a steamy scene in here as well. And I will say I probably liked it less in this than in Beach Read. I get why it's there and it was like sweet and all of that, but I think the way this book describes a lot of things, and I don't know if I like it when that much of that part of the story is described. I think it's hard to do, and I think it's difficult to have these kinds of intimate things in this kind of book, but I think it was done fairly well. There was a little bit more cringe to it for me than I would have liked. I do like, though, that it feels like, for me, that the main character, spoiler alert, ending up with this guy is very much her choice. She just does it because she wants to, and I like that. It's not just some guy comes in and sweeps her off her feet. I like that they meet on equal ground and they sort of like fight each other, and I like that sort of dynamic. It sort of feels modern in that way, in that she is making a choice to do what she wants. I am gonna give this book 4 stars as well, though, which, this is going great so far. I am very happy. But I will say the 4-star for this is based on different things. Again, I think if it was just a romance in here, I probably would give it more of a 3, but there is a lot of other amazing stuff in it that makes it a 4-star read for me. And super duper enjoyable. This is just a very, very fun, light, interesting, and cool book. Like, it's just so fun and enjoyable. And I love these kinds of books when I find them and they work for me. And I like that there is a little bit of a romance element to it, but like the main part that I like about it is like the world and the characters and all of the other stuff. Now, I am gonna read one more book for this vlog, and I want to try and find something that has different kinds of tropes, and I want to find something more in the direction of Beach Read than Lady Scoundrels, because I think that's more what I want to explore and where I don't know what I like. And so I am gonna go to a bookstore and just try and find one and read it. And I'm gonna try to find something that has like different elements to it than the books that I've read so far, and see if I like that, because there's so much to explore in this genre and I don't know what I like, so I just have to try stuff. Alright, so it's actually been a while and I have not had time to update you because I have been so busy, but I did manage to stop by a bookstore and pick out my 3rd read for this vlog. I picked out this book and I actually finished the whole thing. So let's talk about it. I have many thoughts. Now, I do have a little bit of reasoning behind picking this particular book. I picked it because it is a straight up romance and it has different tropes than the other 2 books that I read, and I thought maybe I'll try something a little bit different. This has like a fake dating type situation in it, and I thought that could be interesting to explore, and it was interesting. I have a lot of mixed feelings about this book, to be honest, and it's also probably one of the reasons I didn't update you in the middle, because I couldn't figure out what I thought of it, and I still am not entirely sure. The setup for this, though, is that we are in an academic setting and we meet this woman who is trying to get her PhD in some sort of science. It's like something in STEM, and she has this situation where she has gone on a few dates with this guy, and her best friend and this guy ended up really hitting it off. And she's not particularly interested in this guy, like she doesn't feel anything for him, but the friend doesn't want to date him even though she's really interested in him, because she doesn't want to like date someone that her best friend already went on a date with, and she's really worried about it. And our main character's like solution to this is to tell her friend that it's fine because she's already going on a date with someone else, but she lied. And what happens is that our main character goes to her lab instead of going on a date, thinking that her friend will just think that she's on a date, but the friend actually ends up coming to the lab as well, and this main character that we're following panics because she is supposed to be on a date with someone, and so she just kisses the nearest guy that she can find. This guy ends up being a professor. It's not her professor, which is why they can end up doing this fake dating thing. Otherwise, it would be not allowed, I guess. But he's a professor, and she basically explains to him, like, I'm in this situation, I'm trying to, like, make my friend happy by letting her date this guy, and she's not comfortable with it, but maybe if she sees me with you, she'll be fine with it. And he goes along with it, and he has his own kind of reasons for it, and it sort of is supposed to benefit both of them, I guess. They end up in this fake dating scenario, and the thing with this that I'm sort of struggling with, this out of the 3 books is definitely the one that has the most cringiest moments for me. There is something, like, my main issue with this is there's something about characters that are supposed to be really smart making really dumb decisions that just bothers me a little bit. And there's something about a situation where if people just talk to each other, none of this would happen, that I struggle with that a little bit. I also struggle a little bit with the fact that besides just a little bit of an intro thing, which sort of comes back later and it's very predictable what that intro is, this, like, the first 5 pages is when all of this, like, the kiss happens and all of it. Like, it just goes straight in, and there's very little introduction. And I think, especially for the characters, it would have benefited to have a little bit more introduction, because the characters are not fully there, and especially our main character. Like, when I think about it, I don't know if I really know who she is, except that we're told that she's really smart and she's really beautiful, but I can't picture her at all, really. I wonder if one of my issues with this is that maybe, like, the fake dating trope is not my thing, but I think it could be if it's done differently. And I kind of like some of the situations that they got into. Some of it is ridiculous. Like, some of it is, like, really, it feels a little bit too much. But some of it I do like, and I think I like that trope, but I think the reasoning for it in this book is very thin. I also think more could have been done with the character of the guy, the professor. This does have that, like, grumpy sunshine thing, which I do like. I really like that. I like a grumpy character with, like, a super sunny, bright person. I think that's I like that trope. But I think the grumpiness of this character is a little, like, I don't fully understand it. And I think we spend a lot of time talking about how huge this guy is and how big and broad and muscular and beautiful he is, and not so much on, like, who he actually is as a person. You do see it in some of his actions, but I think there could have been a little bit more done with that. Because you have characters like this, for me, it was a little bit difficult to get super invested in it, and there were a lot of moments of cringe. And I think sometimes if you have really good characters, you don't cringe as much because you're really invested in their relationship and in their story. Whereas in this, because a lot of the reasoning for all of this happening is a little thin, and because the characters are the way they are, you cringe, or at least I cringe more, because it doesn't feel like it's quite there. I do like the academic setting, and I like the discussions of, like, life in academia, and I think it's cool to have female characters that are in STEM, and there are some discussions around that which I really liked. And I like our main character, like, her science stuff I think is really cool. And I kind of wish there was more of it, but obviously this is a romance book, it's not the main thing. But I like her passion about that. I think we could have explored that a little bit more, because you are told why she's so interested in her particular field, but I think that doesn't like fully come out. Like, there's so much stuff in here that just, it's not fully like there for me. All of that being said, I do feel like I did enjoy this. I think towards the end, when I'd spent quite a lot of time with these characters, I was more willing to sort of go along with it. And there is like, I think one of the things that I like about these kinds of books is the tension, like the build-up of tension. There is also, again, a steamy scene in here, and it's probably not my favorite thing that I've ever read. And I think when I was reading it the first time, I was like, okay. But then when I thought about it a little bit, I was like, I wonder if some of this is a little bit like, I don't know. But it's alright, I guess. I think I'm just not used to reading these kinds of scenes and things being described a lot, but now that this is my third one in a row that I'm reading, I feel like I'm getting used to it. When it comes to my rating of this though, I think I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 5. When I was like 2/3 in, I felt like I was gonna give it, like I felt like it started to lose me a little bit, but then it like roped me back in, and I think we're just gonna land at a 3. I think that's alright. And when I was in the middle of this, I thought, I don't think this author is for me, but by the end, I'm wondering if maybe I would like it if it was a different kind of trope or something. I might give some other of her books a go just to see. I can tell though that I'm gonna have to do a lot more reading in this genre to find what I like and what I don't like. And I feel like maybe if I read enough of these, I will be able to like track down the books that are gonna be for me when I find what tropes I like and what I don't like. But, you know, I feel like this overall was very interesting. I think what I have discovered is that I can like romance, but I don't like all of it. And I think that looking at the books that I read, I can tell that I like the enemies to lovers trope, which is kind of in both of these. And I like the grumpy sunshine kind of thing, which is kind of like in both of these. So I know that I like that. I'm not entirely sure if I like the fake dating scenario. I think I'm gonna have to give it, like, I'm gonna have to read some other books with that kind of scenario. This also ends up having that, like, two people are forced to live in the same room kind of situation. And I think I could like that, but I don't know. Definitely like enemies to lovers though, and grumpy sunshine. The thing with the enemies to lovers though is that I feel like these are not that strong. They're not like super enemies to lovers. They just sort of dislike each other and then something happens. I wonder if I would like it if they were like actual true enemies and they like genuinely really hated each other. Because I think in this in particular, it has like the enemies part, they're not really enemies, but the fact that they dislike each other is because they don't know each other, which is not the same as being enemies, I feel. This has more of a setup to be sort of enemies because the guy is literally trying to kill the girl, so they are immediate enemies. But it's like, this is so funny and light that it's hard to take it seriously. I wonder if I would like it if it was like really people hate each other and then they end up together. I don't know how I would feel about that. I'm really glad that I did this though, because I feel like I learned different things from all of these books. I feel like from this I learned that I can like contemporary romance, at least when it's Emily Henry. From this I feel like I learned that I don't need to steer away from historical fiction that has romantic elements. Like sometimes if I see a book on Goodreads and it's historical fiction, but like one of the one of the things that has been marked most as is romance, I will try to avoid it. But I think if it's a subplot like in this, it's fine. I guess calling it a subplot is a little much, but I shouldn't avoid those kinds of books. And from this I learned that I can like contemporary romance, but not all of it. The less invested I am in the characters. If the characters are not super fully developed, I might struggle a little bit more. I will say though, with this, even though I complained about the fact that the guy is always like described as being so tall and big and broad, I did kind of get roped into that. So even though there's like a part of me that disliked it and another part that did like it, so I don't know what's going on with that, but I did enjoy this. The fun thing about this experiment though, and the thing that I have learned, is that I now have a whole genre that I have been kind of avoiding to explore, and it's a lot of fun. And I will say, I flew through all of these books. They were so quick and easy to read and so easy to get invested in, and they were the kinds of books where I was like looking forward to picking them back up. And although I love these kinds of like slightly heavier and what I call darker stories, or more, they're just not as light, I spend longer reading them because I'm not always in the mood to read them. Whereas this, you can pick up at any time, which is why they're so easy to read, and it doesn't require you to be in a particular mood, or it doesn't require you to have any brain power left at the end of the day. You can still read them. And especially when I'm in really busy periods in my life, I think that these kinds of books will make me read more, because when I'm reading another type of book that is a little bit heavier, I just end up not reading because there's nothing left here to use. Out of the 3 books though, I would definitely say that this one is my favorite. I'm really glad that I tried some Emily Henry, and I will mention that when I went and got this book, I may have picked up a bunch of other romance books because now I'm like super into it. And I did pick up some more books by Emily Henry that I'm really looking forward to trying, so I'll have to read those soon. And the other books that I got there are all kinds of different tropes in them, so I think it could be interesting to read different kinds of things. They also, like the bookstore, put up this amazing table, and that's what really got me. It's where I found this, but like the table just got me. And it also had like a 3 for 2 sale, and I bought a lot of books. But yeah, I'm looking forward to reading them. And yeah, I am really surprised this went as well as it did. I am gonna end the vlog here though, and I'm gonna mark this as mostly a success, and I'm very happy with it. I would love to know if any of you have any romance recommendations for me. I think that could be very interesting. I think it's gonna be slightly difficult to recommend me romances because I've read so little of it, so you don't have a lot to go on. But if you have any like books like this, and partly this, I would love to know. I would also love to know if anyone has read anything else by this author, and how is it compared to this? I would like to know. I am gonna read like all of Emily Henry's other books, so I don't need those kinds of recommendations, but if you have anything similar to Emily Henry, I would love to know. I do have the second book in the series, which I bought before reading this, and now I feel like I made a good decision. And I'm gonna read it at some point. I don't know if that's also romance, but it is for sure gonna be a great time if it's anything like this. Do leave your recommendations in the comments if you have any. I would also love to hear if any of you are like non-romance readers, and if you've read any romances that you do like, what kinds of books are those? And if you're like me and you're just delving into romance, I would love to hear about that experience as well. I can't believe that I just have not read anything, but I feel like I'm at that kind of time in my life where I just want something lighter, and sometimes you don't want just like a cozy mystery. Sometimes you just want something light, contemporary, fluffy, that's just super enjoyable. I think my main takeaway from this vlog is that some of these books are like, the enjoyment level is through the roof, and they're so easy to read and easy to get into. That is gonna be it for me today though. Thank you very much for hanging out with me today, and I will see you soon. Bye!